Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris. You're Alec Whipple. And the rest of you are fans of the team that leads the American League East, has the most wins in the American League, has the best winning percentage in the American League, has the best run differential in the American League, has the most runs scored in the American League, has the fewest runs allowed in the American League, maybe in all of baseball, has the highest WRC plus in the American League, and has the lowest ERA in baseball. Those are, of course, the New York Yankees. Whipple, we're coming off a perfect week. The Yankees are on a 7-game winning streak after winning the last game in Tampa and then sweeping the Twins in Minnesota and the White Sox at Yankee Stadium. You were at one of the games. We've got a lot to get into today on what I would say is going to be a very, very positive podcast, as there's not much negative to cover. But first, as someone who attended one of these games, how are you doing?
You know, I'm doing great. It's what a fun week. You know, my week was made better, I think, by the fact that I got a wave from Paul O'Neill at the game.
How about that?
It was, it's fun watching the Yankees. It's even more fun interacting with Yankees legends. I feel like the game that I went
John
to,
Flaherty, Yankees legend.
The game that I went to might have been the closest game of the week, but I just think the feeling all week, even though, the Yankees only won on Friday by 2 runs, even though the tying runs were at second and third with 1 out in the 8th, it's just this feeling of inevitability right now. And I think that's the best way to describe the whole week. When Caleb Ferguson came in on Friday, I don't know. Like, I've been more worried in less stressful situations at Yankees games. And I think it's just because this team's getting it done on all levels right now. Like, bullpen, pitching, starters absolutely going bonkers this week. Aaron Judge having, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but having an absolutely torrid stretch. Juan Soto finding his Juan Soto, hitting ability again. It's so much fun to watch on all levels. It was so fun being there on Friday. And I think everyone going to Yankees games right now is just leaving extremely satisfied, as my dad and I did. And I do have to shout out Doug Whipple. Doug and I spent
Always
6 hours in the car on Friday. So just for your backs, or for your knowledge, we didn't just go to a Yankees game. We actually dropped off my sister at MetLife to see Morgan Wallen, and then went to the Bronx, and then went back to MetLife. So we spent 6 hours navigating. I said to him, this is like the traffic Olympics. We had highway traffic. We had stadium traffic. We had Bronx traffic. We had parking garage gridlock. But the fact that you can leave all that and still feel good, have a smile on your face, thanks to the way the Yankees played. I know my dad agrees. And the other thing I will say about Doug, and I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but he said to me, I always listen when I'm driving home from work at 11 o'clock at night. He's actually listening to every episode now. He said,
amazing.
I want you guys to shout me out because I'm going to listen to this one tonight, hot off the presses. He's working right now. He said, when I'm driving home, I expect a shout out. And so here is your shout out. I know you're going to be listening to this in approximately 7 hours. So we had a great time on Friday, and I hope you have a great time listening to this episode. So shout out Doug Whipple. I know that's extremely off topic, but it's that kind of week.
I would say that he's easily this podcast's favorite medical doctor.
Easily.
I think, Juris Doctor, there's some competition. But I'd say clearly, far and away, this podcast's favorite medical doctor, Doug Whipple. Shout out to him.
Friend of the pod and observer of some excellent baseball this week.
Absolutely. So that's where I want to start. Aaron Judge, he had an unbelievable week. He got into one of those modes in which the only thing he does is barrel the ball. For a while, every ball he hit at least went to the warning track. You, of course, got to see him go yard in person, which is terrific. You've seen now in consecutive seasons, or in consecutive games that you've attended, Judge and Stanton both go yard. in the same game. So that's pretty cool. I'm sorry you couldn't see Kyle Higashioka pile on top of it on Friday as we did in Baltimore last year. But Aaron Judge, who had a 90 WRC plus in like the third or fourth week of April, now is tied with Juan Soto for the team lead at 176. He's hitting 266, 402, 578. It's not out of the realm of possibility at all for him to have his second 300, 400, 600 season this year. And I would bet he will have his third 400, 600 season. I don't know what'll happen to the batting average, but I mean, I understand that people were disappointed and confused and concerned when Aaron Judge got off to a slow start, but I also can't relate to the feeling that many people had that he was, either still hurt or cooked or washed or, any of those other theories, except for Aaron Judge is still Aaron Judge, and we're going to see it eventually. So as someone who saw him go yard this week, and of course observed how terrific he was in Minnesota, though not in person, and as someone who I think was more bullish on the potential for Juan Soto to be the best hitter on the team than I was, how do you react to this last week from Aaron Judge, and how do you see that battle for the top spot of, best hitter on the team playing out over the rest of the season?
I mean, it's crazy. Like on Friday, I guess the more amazing part to me was the fact that he intentionally walked in the fifth inning with 2 outs and
Look,
one.
I gotta say, with that, I think we have to account for the fact that we're dealing with the White Sox here.
Right. There was a lot of White Sox-ness going on this week, in like many levels that it probably isn't worth our time to talk about. But it's just the fact that he commands that much respect. I mean, clearly he has the hard hit ability. Like nobody's hitting a ball as hard or as far as Aaron Judge, except for his teammate, or some of his teammates, which is, a crazy enough sentence to say. But for me, it always like the most impressive thing is the fact that he makes such good swing decisions. He has such a good eye, leading Major League Baseball in walks, and that was true even before this stretch. And the fact that he is not just hitting home runs. I mean, he's doing that. He's leading. I don't know, is he leading the league in doubles? He has a lot of doubles. I think he's leading the league in doubles, which is crazy for someone in Yankee Stadium with a park that like suppresses non-home run extra base hits to a very high degree to be at the top or leading the league in doubles at this point. I think
Ridiculous.
it shows how when the timing issues that we all observed were fixed, like it's the same hitter making the same swing decisions with the same ability. And we said on the pod, like it's clearly there. Like maybe that wasn't a sufficient answer. And I think that's everyone's problem who can't deal with that as a sufficient answer. But it was a different start than maybe other guys we were concerned about. Like all the numbers were there and you knew it was just a matter of if not when. But I just always, like on Friday, I guess like my specific Friday reaction, I was annoyed about the intentional walk with 1 on and 2 outs. But the other thing that struck me is like the swing decisions really changed the course of an inning. Like in that third inning for him to take the walk, which then led to the consecutive doubles that brought in the second and third runs of the game. I mean, he's not just a home run hitter. He's not just a presence in the lineup. Like he gets on base, to pull the Moneyball quote in any way possible. And when you know that you have 2 guys, Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, who are willing to take their walks in addition to hitting the ball at the ballpark, I mean, it's just so hard to deal with that as an opposing pitcher, to say nothing of everyone else. I think I just forgot like how good of an eye Aaron Judge had because me, like everyone else, was, fawning over Juan Soto for 2 months and, rightly so. But Aaron Judge has just as good of an eye, makes his just as good swing decisions. I think it just changes the course of innings when, he's not just able to hit home runs, but do all of those other things too.
Yeah. I mean, I think one narrative that it's important for us to push back on is the idea that Aaron Judge is this all or nothing hitter. And that was true, or that narrative persisted even during his 2022 season when he nearly won the batting title, you know, got on base at what, a 425 clip, and of course hit 62 home runs. There was this idea, I think it was a piece in The Athletic, and they polled, an anonymous group of major league players, and they said, who would you want up in this situation? It was some late game, high leverage runner on third, whatever. And so many people were saying, oh, well, I'd take Luis Ariz in that situation. And, I don't want Aaron Judge. He's going to strike out or something. Like, what are we doing here? This is a guy who, for the last 3 years, has gotten on base in like 42% of his plate appearances. Like, that is, nobody's doing that. Like,
Right.
It's insane that people think that because he strikes out just a tiny bit more than league average, that the only things he does are hit strikeouts and strike out and hit home runs. Now, I don't think that's an extremely widespread belief. I think that there are a lot of people who appreciate how complete Aaron Judge's offensive game is, but still, the thing that has followed him for his entire career is this idea that he is so prone to the strikeout. He has one full season batting below 270. He hit 257 in the COVID year. He hit 267 last year. So hardly a full season. Every time he's gotten 600 plate appearances, he's hit like 280 or higher. It's ridiculous. I can't stand it. This idea that because Aaron Judge is big and hit so many home runs, he must strike out all the time. Aaron Judge is the best hitter on the planet. He's the best hitter on the planet until proven otherwise. I'm open to the idea that Ohtani could prove otherwise this year, but it hasn't happened yet. And Aaron Judge isn't just the best hitter on the planet because of his propensity to hit the ball over the fence, although that really helps. He's the best hitter on the planet because he rolls out of bed, gets on base 40% of the time, and slugs 600. And there's no one else doing that.
And let's not forget that he's cut his strikeout rate drastically since the first 3 seasons of his career. I mean, he used to run like a 30 to 31% strikeout rate. Since 2021, he's consistently around 25. I think last year, 28, but this year back down to 25. And I know, it's only a matter of a few percentage points, but that's a huge difference. I mean, he's upped his isolated power, lowered his strikeout rate, and maintained the on-base ability. This is how you make the perfect baseball player.
It's special stuff.
Yeah, you're basically the sentence I just said is do everything right, and everything is just that's all really hard to do. One of those things right. He's trending in the right direction throughout his career on pretty much every single important statistic. I mean, he's a conceivably better player in 2021 to 2024 than he was from 2017 to 2019. And I think people just can't get past that initial, even he wasn't all or nothing then, but certainly struck out more than he does now. And we should remember that. That's a different hitter.
I think that, it's funny. People are going to find this to be a weird comparison, but the arc of Aaron Judge's career is not dissimilar to what was so impressive about 2023 Gleyber Torres, which is he increased his walks, decreased his strikeouts, and maintained or improved his power. That's very similar to 2023 Ronald Acuna, for example. That is a hard confluence of changes to achieve. And I definitely agree with you that people don't appreciate Aaron Judge having achieved that nearly as much as they ought to. You can really trace the way that he has matured as a hitter. I mean, it comes through in on-base percentage. From 2018 to 2021, it was 378, and it's 415 since then. He's just such a phenomenal player. And the fact that he was off to this slow start and now it's universally agreed that he's basically going to scare 8 Fangraphs WAR this year, it's a phenomenal season. And I don't think that Aaron Judge is underrated, but I do think he's kind of getting into that Jose Ramirez territory in which, like, people forget how special it is that he is just automatically as good as he is. And I think that's what the start of this season showed a little bit is it's just so automatic for Aaron Judge to be this good. It's so reliable. It is always there. And when he has a slump, people start acting like they're entitled to Aaron Judge being a 200 WRC plus hitter, which, like, of course he did eventually find, but he's just lulled us into this sense of, like, if Aaron Judge isn't at every moment the best hitter on the planet, something must be wrong, which is a testament to just how incredible he is.
Right. It's like, and I think, I think Jose Ramirez could be a good comparison. Like, I think people appreciate Aaron Judge and like respect him more than I think Jose Ramirez has gotten the credit for it. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
he's universally, preseason like top 2 or 3. But
Mm-hmm.
what I don't think people fully understand is, and just thinking about this literally on the fly, like this is probably one of the greatest, like, one of the great, like, he's not an unknown prospect because he was a first rounder, but lower ranked, more unheralded prospect. For him, it was kind of like more carnival attraction because he's big to absolute superstar that we've seen. I mean, if you look at baseball history, most of the guys who are superstar players are, top of the draft, like number one prospect types. And so I always try to remember that he's come such a long way from like where he was even as a prospect to where he became as a major leaguer to now. And when people say, oh, no 6'7" player can sustain this, this is the beginning of the decline. Aaron Judge has already proven pretty much everyone wrong.
Yeah.
He is an outlier, and like he is going to continue to be an outlier. It's hard to compare him to other similarly sized players. So like there is no inevitable decline. His career is a one of one. If you're going to say like
It is.
unicorn, whatever you want to say, like this is not an ordinary career path. So I think people should remember that when either writing their obituaries or doubting or just being concerned, like this is a guy who has overcome longer odds than a first month slump. And I feel pretty confident that he is going to be able to maintain this. And really, I mean, at this point, like you said, yeah, people universally are like 8 WAR, no question. A
Yeah.
few more seasons of this, like I just think like his career is one of the all-time unicorn great players. I think that's really cool. But I think while we're watching it, we should remember that like it's it's not a given how things are going to happen, but he has proven it. He's proven and given himself the benefit of the doubt for how we should treat him.
So Aaron Judge got up to number 31 on the MLB list and number 18 on the Baseball Prospectus list before 2016. Had his kind of tumultuous debut in 2016, and then before the 2017 season, in which he, of course, was the rightful MVP winner, he was ranked 90th by Baseball America, 45th by MLB, and 63rd by Baseball Prospectus. Before the 2014 season, Mookie Betts was ranked 75th by Baseball America and 62nd by MLB. So Mike Trout and Bryce Harper doing a lot of work for the like yay prospect evaluation. Mookie and Judge becoming, arguably the two best players in the sport, or two of the 3 or 4 best players in the sport, hurting them a little bit. Yeah, absolutely one of the great unicorn careers. I think, does it feel to you like people stopped making the Dave Winfield comparison? Like, I felt like that was such a big thing early in his career just because Dave
Yeah.
Winfield was this, impossibly large guy who had, impressive longevity and such a terrific career and all that. I feel like that's kind of gone away. And I don't know if that's because Dave Winfield's career high in homers was 37 or what it is, but yeah, it feels like Judge has kind of separated himself from any comparison, really, because it's certainly the Stanton ones have gone away with the way that Stanton has aged. I'm just not really feeling like I'm hearing the Winfield stuff. He's become, a very singular player. And
Mhm.
that to me is really cool. And I love him. And I'm glad that he's never going to play for anyone except the Yankees.
The only time I feel like I hear it is like in regards to the fielding, and that's fair. Like, there's no way he's playing center field for 7.5 more years. But for now, I think like in terms of the hitting, I think you're right that it there's no like Aaron Judge is with Winfield and Dave Kingman. I mean, he's certainly a one-of-one hitter, and the fielding, that's for 2024. I don't really think that's our issue because he's out there in center field every day and he's playing a great center field. And the Yankees should be very, very lucky that they have a incredible player who can do that, because otherwise you're looking at a real outfield logjam that would probably consume like 95% of this podcast with like our debate over, who should be playing where. Judge just makes it all fit.
And thank you, Aaron Judge, for that. So, Whipple, one of the things that I think has surprised a lot of people about this year's, or at least the Yankees team that we've seen for this first couple months, because they're conspicuously without Garrett Cole, is the quality of the starting pitching. You saw a 7-inning, 6 strikeout, 1 walk, 5 hit, 1 run, 0 earned run performance from Nestor Cortes, who has had a weird, uneven year, I would say, but has been quite productive on the whole. What did you see from Nestor as we transition into talking about how the Yankees leading the league in run prevention is pretty insane?
Absolutely insane. And that's like, I mean, again, I shill for the pitching staff, and I don't even think I would have gone this far.
Yeah.
There's a difference between keeping the ship afloat until Cole gets back to whatever is going on. Like whatever the hell got in the water to make Luis Gil strike out 14 batters yesterday.
And only walk 1.
That's the crazy part. Like I said it before, I'll say it again, that the length of the starts and not walking guys helps increase the innings total. The length that these guys are providing is crazy to me. Luis Gil, like suddenly having command, Clark Schmidt suddenly being able to pitch to the 7th and 8th inning. Like it's just things that I would never even put on bold predictions, right? Like that's how crazy we're talking. I think for Nestor, like I think you had said, the exit velo didn't look good at the beginning, and it definitely was shaky at times. I mean, the White Sox kind of ran themselves out of some innings, but he was just efficient. Like there's nothing really more to it. He was just mowing guys down, like getting quick outs. Against a not great lineup, he handled, the few times he had multiple runners on base well. I think like when he's in control, it just seems very easy. And even the starts he hasn't pitched well. I mean, like the last game against Tampa was really just a few bad pitches. I've been really impressed from him just because of what he went through last year. And I mean, it was not a given that he would be able to provide anything this year, not anything, but like any kind of consistent performance, much less the length. I think him and Rodon both, but I was really, I guess, impressed by the way he just looked like very in command. And that's true of all the Yankee starters. Like they have looked like they, it's their mound and they are, just going through innings with really like impressive efficiency. I know we've seen this in isolated stretches before from certain Yankees rotations in the past few years, but I think with this group of names, it's just even more surprising. And I mean, Nestor is always fun to watch. Like his antics on Friday were fun, but the antics don't play as well when you can't throw 7 innings of, without an earned run. Like, I think that's the most important thing. Like this team, this pitching staff has just made it so easy that like you can appreciate all the little things that they do.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And one thing that I think Nestor's outing on Friday, or at least portions of it, had in common with Rodon's outing today was like they didn't necessarily have their best stuff. They weren't necessarily incredibly sharp. Rodon walks 2 guys, gives up a homer, a lot of hard contact in there. Nestor obviously had the hard contact that we were talking about early in the game. And this is obviously colored by the fact that it's the White Sox and the White Sox are bad. I think the inimitable My Baseball page pointed out that like their average runs per game starts with a 2 and it's not in the 20s. So I think you have to adjust for that. But the bottom line for me is just guys have figured out how to go out and keep the Yankees in a position to win games. And, there will be games when the batting average on balls in play doesn't go your way. Luis Gil throws 6 shutout innings against the Rays, only gets 3 strikeouts, but the BABIP is 176. sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. It's my favorite stat of this whole weekend, maybe of this entire week, was that the BABIP allowed by Heel on Saturday was 556. So he allowed 5 hits on 9 balls in play. Strike out 14 guys. You can survive that. Cluster luck doesn't bite you. And look, if this is something that I've been kind of sitting on that I think I'm ready to unleash. I think a lot about the 2021 San Francisco Giants. I think about them extremely frequently. I thought about them a lot last year, kind of as the foil to the 2023 Yankees. On that Giants team, everything went right. Everything went right. I mean, pick a player. He basically had a career year, even if he was 50 years old, like Buster Posey and Brandon Crawford. And that kind of clustering of great outcomes has an element of luck to it, just as the clustering of awful outcomes for the 2023 Yankees had an element of luck to it. And as I think about the pitching staff this year and their performance in the absence of Garrett Cole, what I continue to think is, if there's a time when I want these guys to be getting lucky, it's right now. It is right now. It is while they're without Cole. It is, while some guys are doing things sustainably very well. I think of Clark Schmidt and Luis Heel in particular when I mentioned that. I think that the way I talk about luck with great disdain can be misinterpreted. I want the Yankees to be the luckiest team in the league, and I never want that to run out. And I'm going to appreciate it, even if it concerns me, during the times that the Yankees are getting lucky. And there's been some luck in the performance of the pitching staff this year. We think of, guys in the bullpen not getting a ton of strikeouts, although the return of Tommy Kahnle should remedy some of that. We think of, Carlos Rodon's performance relative to his FIP and xFIP, or, a low batting average on balls in play that guys are allowing, whatever it might be. I want the team to get lucky, because sometimes getting lucky in that way is what turns you into a 33-15 team without Garrett Cole. And I'm happy to ride that wave. And I don't think they're going to play 690 ball all year. At some point they will regress. But as I've said this entire year, even if there are things that concern me in the profile, which offensively have basically all gone away, these wins are banked. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty happy about that. So the pitching staff has been awesome. I love that they have the lowest ERA in baseball. I don't care almost if there's some regression there, because the best answer to regression is Garrett Cole, and he'll be back in, what do we think, 4, 5, 6 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
So the fact that there's a lot to love with this pitching staff, and they're adding Tommy Kahnle on Wednesday and Garrett Cole in a month, makes me feel very, very good, especially because things on the offensive side are moving in the right direction too. Can't help but notice that Gleyber Torres has started to turn things around ever since that home run in Tampa. But it even goes back beyond that, because he has a WRC plus of, I think it's about 110. I'm checking right now. Yeah, including today, 110 in his last 63 plate appearances. So it's just, with Aaron Judge turning it on, with Gleyber Torres, possibly turning things around, getting things rolling, even with Juan Soto going through a slump and, now settling in at his, also godlike level of performance, with Anthony Rizzo and Giancarlo Stanton continuing to contribute, like with DJ LeMahieu possibly coming back and being productive, who knows what's going to happen there. There's just so much to love with this team. And while there are areas where they might take steps back, as we've just discussed, there are areas that they're going to supplement. And that kind of calms me down a little bit when I start to worry about Are they playing so far above their heads? Are they going to regress? Things like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, to that point, I think of 2022, and like clearly this team is like that's the comparison because like based on the way this is trending, I mean that's the win pace they're holding. And 2022, I think people misremember what the what the end outcome of the 2022 team was 99 wins
Yep.
and a 2 seed in the AL or to get into the playoffs and a bye. And that was with a absolutely horrific second half that, or I should say August, because they actually played better in September.
Yeah, they did.
But the reason that doesn't derail your season is because of the wins banked in the first half. And
those wins count.
the narrative of the 2022 Yankees is very controversial based on the way it ended, but I think we can all agree that like that team as a whole went into the playoffs with 90% of the players it needed to. And I don't think DJ LeMahieu or Andrew Benintendi was, even if people want to think that, I don't think it derailed their season. I think that team came out of the season like fully, basically ready to go. And the playoff failures are the playoff failures. But I guess my point is that team is a great example of the fact that that first half counts for something. Like it doesn't matter that they slumped in August. They came into the first half, or they came out of the first half with all of the wins banked that basically pushed them through August. And that was like the worst case scenario. I mean, that was like first percentile. You're never going to expect that stuff in a million years. So I think with this
everyone
team,
is either hurt or bad all at once.
right, except for the greatest player on the planet.
Exactly.
But I think this team has such a stronger base. I mean, offensively, they're running laps around the 2022 first half team, which I think was a strong offensive team on its own. I mean, this team's WRC plus is like 10 points higher at similar stages. It's just a more well-rounded team. Whatever you think about them, like at the end of the day, you can look at 2022 to see that the first half wins will matter. They do count. They're going to be important come October. And if you want to look for other reasons to feel good, I think there are plenty there. But like, let's not look past the fact that even if you don't feel that these wins are sustainable, 2022 might have had the same concerns that pushed the Yankees into a bye in the playoffs all the same. So I think it is important, and it's exciting to see that like there's real steps being taken to avoid what happened last year, even if the worst should happen and there's a poor second half.
I want to point out that the 2022 Yankees had a 106-56 Pythagorean win-loss. Part of that was juiced by just an insane run production, which, some of that came in the first half. Some of that was just winning a lot of games by a lot of runs. I think, there are lots of problems with the narrative of that season, but you're right. The lesson that should be taken from that season is every win is worth just as much as every other win. And people very selectively apply that learning is something that I noticed. I saw a video this week, and I won't say from who, but in one video complaint, or maybe it was two different videos from the same person, but either way, in one video there was a complaint about the Yankees not caring enough about winning games in 2021 and therefore having to go on the road for the wild card game and losing. And then the same person was talking about how in 2022 they were so good in the first half and then everything fell apart. Well, they achieved everything you could want them to achieve from the regular season in 2022. And I don't know. I think you're right that people learned a lot of the wrong lessons from 2022 about when it's important to win games. The answer is it's always important to win games. And if you have a great first half, that's great because those wins count just as much as the wins in August and September.
They were also 17-8 in September. Like, I think the narrative, like the slump in August lost them any chance they had to be good in the playoffs. No, that team was coming into October firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely.
And I think that's forgotten, like how good they were in September. And with 2021, I still maintain that season-ending road trip through Boston, Toronto is like one of the more impressive things I've seen.
Absolutely.
Accomplish go at 5-1. So like, there's every season has a different story. Like it is very hard to compare across seasons, but I think in that case, all the wrong lessons are being learned because the 2021 Yankees actually had a more impressive finish to the season and then did worse in the playoffs than 2022 Yankees, even though people want to say the narrative of like they each failed in their own unique way, and that's why they didn't win the playoffs. Like, no, I think 2022 was just a better team. Like, and they got farther, like as you would expect them to.
Do you think we talk enough about the 2021 Yankees winning more games than the 2017 Yankees? Did you know I was going to say that?
No, but I feel like whenever we talk about the 2021 Yankees, it's like World War like two veterans like
it is, yeah.
Like that was our trial by fire into podcasting. That was so stressful that season.
And the difference between that, or a difference between that team and this team is, I think this team is undefeated in rubber games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the last time they lost on a getaway day. As you always point out, the 2021 Yankees, every time we were recording a podcast, it was like, all right, they went 4-3 this week, but they just lost, 7-6 in 10 innings, 10 minutes before we started recording the podcast. So thank you to the 2024 Yankees for being different than that and not doing that, because like, imagine if the Yankees went 5-1 this week, but like we had to talk about Michael Tonkin blowing a 5-run lead at the end of the game that just wrapped up. Like, people would want us to be furious, but how are you going to be furious after a 5-1? Like, anyway, I'm glad they went 6-0. I'm glad that they keep winning before we podcast. It's not going to last the whole season, but I'm glad it's happening right now.
What kind of sick team would go on a 13-game win streak and then lose like 10 of 15 and then win like 8 in a row and then like lose 2 and end up in that one game, like, winner take all? That was just it was too much. And yes, I'm glad this, like, the narratives of this season are a little more sorted correctly.
Yeah, me too. At what point do we start talking about a Luis Gil Rookie of the Year campaign? My answer is, I think it has to be after Garrett Cole comes back, because if they take him out of the rotation, it's over, right?
Yeah, but I was going to say, how about a Luis Gil All-Star appearance to start? And that very much should be on the table, right?
I mean, if the All-Star game were tomorrow,
right,
Tarek Skubal is starting it, probably. But like, Luis Gil is right there.
Right. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like ERA wise, strikeouts wise, definitely like underlying stats wise, he's right up there. And through like the player vote, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard to know with All-Stars. It is an interesting conversation to have, only briefly, because I think the Yankees pitching wise definitely have a few, but between him and Clark Schmidt, I feel like one of these like kind of unheralded preseason starters is in position. And for Rookie of the Year, I think you're right. Like, I think you got to see it. You got to see how it shakes out when Cole's back. But I don't discount the fact that if he goes into the bullpen and is just as dominant and has the half season of starting statistics plus another half season of relief. I mean, if we're talking about Mason Miller for Rookie of the Year, like, how is Luis still going to be any different with half a season of starting under his belt?
That's a very good point. I like that. Good narrative.
That's what we do. We craft narratives.
That's true. That's what we're here for. I want to talk about the American League East. This division's really good. Like, I know we, laugh at the Blue Jays and we appreciate that they're bad. And I know that the Red Sox are, 23-24, and I don't think they're going to be all that good, but like, I don't really believe that either, or really any of Boston, Tampa, or Toronto will win fewer than, I don't know, like 78 games. And I was talking to a friend about this last night. I think Orioles fans and Yankees fans are very much feeling the same thing, which is like, you just can't afford to lose. Like, the other team is playing too well. And so I'm very annoyed that the Orioles managed to take a series from Seattle, because like, Seattle's supposed to be run prevention merchants. What are you doing? Like, prevent runs, guys. And they didn't do that very well. And I'll let you, just talk about how this is reminding you of 2012 and stuff like that. But like, it's kind of bothering me that the Yankees are playing so well and all they've gotten from it is a 2-game division lead. Like, I can't be the only one feeling this. Like, it's really annoying that they're doing everything at a, best in baseball pace, basically. And it hasn't netted them any security in the division to the extent that you can have security this early in the season. Now, I'm comforted by the fact that Picota thinks the Yankees are, similarly, a tiny bit better than the Orioles at preventing runs and a good chunk better than the Orioles at scoring runs, and therefore that the Yankees will win the division by about 6 games. But like, it doesn't feel like that to me when I have to watch the Orioles just figure out some dumb way to win every game. And they're also just very good. Like, they do a lot of stuff I like. They hit a lot of home runs. Their pitching is terrific. Like, I don't know. You can talk about how you're feeling about it and also 2012, but I just can't get over, like, man, the Yankees are doing so well, but this is just what they have to do to keep their heads above water in the division.
Well, the last time the Yankees and the Orioles were in a no, quite honestly, I mean, if the 2012 Yankees and the 2012 Orioles played
2012
or 2012 2012 Yankees, 2012 Orioles played a series against their 2024 counterparts, they get blown out of the water. I mean, these teams are just so much better. I personally think. So like that doesn't. I feel like I'm not bothered because one, the Yankees are setting themselves up to avoid what happened last year, which is miss the playoffs entirely.
Yep.
I think like these two teams are the class of the league, and like it's going to be what I'm happy about is that it's separating out because the 2021 nightmare that we talk about all the time really came because you had 4 really good teams that like only 3 could make the playoffs, and they were just tearing each other apart. And I would much rather be in a 2-man race because that, you can push the others to the side. You can go head to head. It's just easy. You don't have to worry about like all these different outcomes of who wins what night, like which teams are going to, pick up ground. For now, it's like we watch the Yankees games, we watch the Orioles games. And like you said, I respect the Orioles. Like I know
They're very good.
You have the Baltimore bias and you want them to do well because it makes your life more fun. I just feel like watching them, like it's hard to dislike a team of young guys who play baseball well and do it for, in all the right ways. They slug, the pitching is always, it always seems like they're, don't have pitching, but the pitching is actually performing just as well as the Yankees this year.
Yeah, like they should be on this knife's edge where like they're giving so many innings to Jacob Webb and Keegan Aiken and Cole Irvin and at times Tyler Wells and Albert Suarez. And then, Felix Bautista is not even healthy and Craig Kimbrell is broken in some way. And there they are, 29-15, most home runs in the league, only 9 more runs allowed than the Yankees. Like, what is this?
I mean, I'm sure YankeesFiles, wherever they are, is probably saying the same thing about the Yankees pitching.
Yeah.
I do like the dynamic of like the Yankees are kind of chasing the Orioles because that is very different than probably ever. I mean, that we can remember. And the Yankees so far have, they've shown that like this is going to be a 2-team race, and I think it was the onus on them to prove that, and I think they have proved that at least to this point in every possible way. And I know, the Orioles won 3 out of 4, yada, yada, yada. 3 of those games, like we said, came down to specific moments, and it was, they were on knife's edges. I don't think the Orioles outclassed them in that series. Like I said a few weeks ago, if it was 4 games like Thursday, different story. And again, I don't even know how much that would have mattered, but these two teams played with each other 3 out of the 4 games, and we'll see what happens in June. But I'm not as upset as I am happy that it is the Yankees and the Orioles and not like the Rays and the Orioles and the Yankees kind of trying to catch them. We've seen that movie before last year.
Yeah. And it wasn't any fun. I do kind of feel like the Yankees are chasing the Orioles weirdly. Yeah. Like, I don't know. And I think it was interesting that you said that because the Yankees run differential is 20 runs better. They've scored 12 more runs. They've allowed 9 fewer. They have a higher WRC plus. Like, I think the only thing is the Orioles hit some more home runs per game. And the Yankees have been steadily catching up in that with, Aaron Judge getting hot in particular. Like, maybe, I don't know if it's the carryover effect from last year. I don't know if it's just a sincere belief that the Orioles are a very good team. I don't know if it's not wanting to get complacent. I don't know if it's expecting that, because the Yankees are playing at a higher winning percentage clip right now, their regression is going to hurt a little more. And, 659 is closer to a real winning percentage that you can have over a full season than 688 is. But I do feel like every time I watch the Orioles lose, I feel like the Yankees get closer to them more so than I feel like the Yankees are separating from them. And I don't love that feeling. Like, I wish it felt more like the Yankees were obviously the better team, and maybe Garrett Cole comes back and Gleyber Torres rounds into form, and some of the guys who have been doing really good stuff maintain that and show that it's not a fluke or whatever, and then the Yankees do round into being the better team clearly. But I just feel like I have to give the Orioles the benefit of the doubt right now. And man, it's a long season. And
well, it's looking ahead. I don't personally love a lot of the stuff that the new schedule has done. I think it's really
agreed.
It's taken some of the luster out of these division races. You have less head-to-head September game. Really, what happened in 2021 was a product of, the exciting finish was a product of playing Boston, Toronto, and Tampa Bay three in a row to end the season. And while it's stressful then, it was really fun. The games were awesome. You just don't get that the same way. But having said that, I can't help but look to the last week of the season and see the Yankees are hosting the Orioles at Yankee Stadium. And
oh man,
if this is going the way that we feel like it's going, and again, there's like maybe a 10% chance that things line up like this, but it is baseball and stuff works out like that. Wouldn't that be fun for, within a 3-game margin or somewhat close? I mean, I love the Yankees Orioles games for the historic connection, but just in terms of these two teams, I mean, these two teams are the class of the American League right now. And even looking farther ahead, if one team gets the top wild card and the other team is the top seed in the league, I also can't help but think that could lead to a postseason meeting. I mean, it just seems like they are intertwined right now, and I cannot wait for June. I can't wait for July, even though we're going to be at your wedding. We're, streaming on our phones or whatever. And I can't wait for September because these games are going to be fun. And that's all you could ask for as a baseball fan.
The stretch I have circled on the Orioles schedule is June 11th to
They have a tough June.
July 4th. Hosting the Braves, hosting the Phillies, going to the Yankees, going to the Astros, hosting the Guardians, hosting the Rangers, going to Seattle. That is definitely a rougher stretch than either the Yankees or the Orioles have faced to this point this season. And I'm very interested to see what happens during that time. Around that same time, the Yankees come off a series with the Dodgers and then have Kansas City, Boston, Baltimore, Atlanta on that same trip. Mets, Blue Jays, Reds. So, possibly that's an opportunity for the Yankees to create real space. But even still, we're talking about something that's 3 weeks away. The Yankees need to maintain over that 3 weeks. Like, this is the challenge of there being a team that's so good in the division. I don't want to invoke a lot of the 2018 season, but that Yankees team won 100 games.
Right.
And they started off really hot. And still, when there's another team in your division that wins 108, there's not really anything you can do about it. Yeah. And I hope that the Yankees end up being the team that wins 108 in this example, but man, the Orioles are going to make it tough. And it is, a nice spice and storyline to have in the season, but it also makes things really stressful. Like it emphasizes how important every game is.
Yeah, because on a similar pace, I mean, 2022 without a comparable team chasing them. And I know, the margin shrunk at the end, but there was a point not too far from today where division lead got double digits. I mean, I think it got to 15 games at one point. And really, that is not going to happen this year because the Orioles are just too good. It made that middle of the season not stressful, but obviously the gap ended up shrinking. But I think your point is like, you're not going to get that, like this team is cruising. We can all sit back and just like talk about how great things are and how, stressless these games are. It seems like it's going to be a dogfight all the way down, and it's good and bad. I think you're definitely right about that.
Yeah, by June 16th, 2022, the Yankees had a double-digit lead in the division, and I do not see that happening this year.
They had that like stretch of like, I remember like Tampa, Toronto, Tampa, Houston or something, and then just carved them up, and that was kind of beginning of the end.
Exactly.
It was a fun stretch.
Definitely a fun stretch. All right, Whipple, we've covered the resurgent Aaron Judge and the elite week that he had. We've covered the Yankees' terrific run prevention. We've covered what was that? We've covered that there's going to be quite a tough division race that the Yankees have to fight for this entire season. Let's start to get things wrapped up. It was a perfect week for the Yankees with a sweep in Minnesota and then a sweep against the White Sox. They only allowed 5 runs this series, 1 run the last series, 6 runs in 6 games. Pretty good considering not even all those runs were earned. So I'll take that. As they get ready for 4 games against the Mariners and then a West Coast trip that begins in San Diego. No off day before the West Coast trip is tough. And I think we know what's going to happen in the Tyler Wade revenge series in San Diego.
Yeah, a lot of former Yankees were
going to be. A lot of former Yankees on that team. It could be the revenge series for anyone. It looks like they're not lining up to face Mike King.
I was going to say, damn.
Yeah.
That was fun.
So as they come off a great week and stare a tough one in the face, your confidence 1 to 10, the New York Yankees.
I mean, right now, like, I don't know. I know sometimes you're like, well, we can't go to 10 because you can't go higher than that. I think when a team is clicking like this, like, I personally feel like it should be at 10 because there's just nothing to critique this week. I mean, when I personally attended the quote unquote
worst game,
worst win of the week, and you only win by 2. And as I said to my dad, if they had won by more, we wouldn't have seen that sick new Clay Holmes closer.
That's true. That's true. The modern Rivera.
Exactly. Like, I feel like it's hard to say that, like, I'm looking for anything, wasn't the hardest opponents. But then again, like, you look at the Twins and what they were doing before the Yankees came in. You look at the White Sox playing better recently. I know it's the AL Central, but they didn't beat teams that are, like, on a 10-game losing streak. I'm going to say 10, and that's not because I think, like, this team is going to maintain a 10 all season. But I think for the way they're playing right now, it just feels like a 10 out of 10. Like, nothing is wrong. And it's, really, like, quite literally nothing is wrong. And I feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I also felt this week like probably something I hadn't felt since 2022, which was like I woke up and I thought about the Yankee game and my default expectation was like they're going to win. And I didn't think it was weird that that's how I was feeling. So in that regard, I totally understand giving them a 10. I think there's too much out there that can still improve this team to give them a 10 right now for me, though. Like, I understand what you're saying, which is how could I ask them to play any better? They're doing so well. They're giving me everything I could want. Like, I totally understand that. But the fact that Gleyber Torres's WRC plus still starts with a 7. The fact that Tommy Kahnle hasn't thrown a pitch for this team, that Garrett Cole hasn't thrown a pitch for this team, that DJ LeMahieu, which may or may not be a good thing, hasn't taken a plate appearance for this team. It holds me back from saying, you know what, I appreciate the way this team has played so much that I'm going to give them a 10. So I'm going to be at a 9, which is up from where I've been. And I think it is appreciative of the fact that we've seen really good things from the pitching staff. I think it recognizes that Aaron Judge is playing like Aaron Judge, and I should acknowledge that. I think it, as I said, leaves room for me to adjust upward as the Yankees continue to improve. And as I've been saying the whole season, you know, when they started, whatever it was, 9-3 or 12-4, you know, they're not going to win 75% of their games. I don't think they're going to win 68.8% of their games. But I think it's reasonable to believe that the best for this team is still to come, given the things that we expect to change and the players we expect them to get back. So I want to leave some room for that.
Yeah, if I'm giving them a 10 out of 10 without Garrett Cole, like things are going right. And I
gonna have
feel
to
like,
get into improper fractions.
oh my God, yeah. Yeah, if they're playing like this and he comes back, we're breaking the scale.
Little spinal tap. This goes to 11 action.
Oh, God, that's where I'm going.
All right, Whipple, this was great. Perfect podcast after a perfect week, I'd say. Before we finally wrap things up, any parting shots from you?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about my game experience on Friday, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention my first time in a while, because I was remarking to my dad, I don't think Andrew Benintendi played as a Yankee long enough for any of us to really see him in person.
Yeah.
So it must have been since the Red Sox days. But as I sent you multiple pictures, Andrew Benintendi was there. He was batting fifth. He, as you saw on your TV and as I saw in person, he was just as bad as he's been all year.
Yep.
I think part of what I referenced earlier about the feeling of, you know, inevitability when Ferguson came in with 2 on and 1 out was, you know, this team playing really well. They're going to find a way. Part of it was like they're bringing in a lefty to face Andrew Benintendi, and I feel like this is going to go well. And it did go well. So shout out to you for just being right about Andrew Benintendi. Shout out to me for getting off the train at exactly the right time. And
True.
Shout out to the Yankees for not giving him that 5th year, because heaven help us, it's not good.
Oh my gosh.
When the eye test matches the numbers in the worst way, you know it's not good.
It's the worst contract in the world, possibly. Like worse than Steven Strasburg, worse than Patrick Corbin, worse than Javier Baez. Guy's got a 41 WRC plus, and it was, of course, poetic that he also ended up making the last out of the series. Whipple, that wraps things up for us. People can keep up with us at YankeesFiles.com. They can follow us on Twitter, where we are at YankeesFiles. They can listen to the podcast wherever they get their podcasts, with the added bonus of video if they're listening on Spotify. We hope, as we do every week, that if you're listening to the podcast, you'll rate, review, subscribe, give it 5 stars, whatever is the appropriate system that you're dealing with in your podcast app of choice. And we hope if you don't like the podcast, you don't do any of those things. We don't have time for your negative review, but we hope you still listen and download and juice those numbers. Full episodes are also available on YouTube, where we are at youtube.com/YankeesFiles. We will be back similar time, similar place next week to recap a pretty brutal week that is to come against Seattle and San Diego. So hoping the Yankees can keep up their strong play. Until then, let's go Yankees.